almost about that time. Right about now.
Right about now. Funk, bunk, 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 soul, brother.
All right. Well, Petr Ludwig, welcome to the Right About Now podcast.
Hey, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. I've been wanting to do this interview for a while about procrastination, but I keep putting it off. Sorry, I had to start that off with a joke. But it is true.
Never heard this one.
Never heard that one before. Exactly. That was good. I think, one of the things that led me to you and to this topic is that I did a survey of my audience recently, and I asked them, what are the obstacles that are most standing in your way of achieving your goals? Mm-hmm. And one of the number one response was procrastination. So I said, I got to do an episode about procrastination, not only because my audience is struggling with it, but because I personally struggle with procrastination as an obstacle for creativity. Yeah. And I'm curious, before we get into procrastination, what it is, how to stop it, I'd love to know about your background, how you became who you are and had this expertise.
Well, I was studying my university, and in the time I set up a little company. And shortly when I was in my 20s, I had a team of 15 people, and all my colleagues were in the same age, around 20, 25. And all of us, we were huge procrastinators. Yeah. And in that time, I found that it has solution. I found the way how to fight my own procrastination, because there is a lot of scientific data, scientific studies around procrastination, about our intrinsic motivation, how we can stay focused longer, and so on. And me and my friends and my colleagues, we started to, making our own tools for fighting procrastination. And my book, The End of Procrastination, now is the mixture of the best tools that we made. And I'm very happy that I can share those tools with as many people as possible. Because since I wrote the book, it means it works. Yeah, because I'm also a big procrastinator, and I need all those my tools to stay motivated, to stay focused, and to organize my daily tasks and everything. So without my tools, I'm completely lost.
And I'm glad that we have your tools, because I think we're all a bit lost. And I think it's important, before we understand how to manage procrastination, to understand where it comes from and why we do it in the first place. Can you talk about, I wrote down some of the things that I think are the reasons, but I love, and you certainly report them in your book. So tell us why do we procrastinate? What is it about humans that makes us want to procrastinate? We can sort of go down the list of reasons.
Yeah, there are many sources of procrastination, but let's say three main sources. The first is lack of motivation, lack of purpose. If you are working on a project and you lack purpose, it's truly difficult to stay motivated. So, and there is a lot of, scientific evidence that lack of purpose at work is also one of the main sources of depression in Western world. So it's a huge problem. We have a crisis of purpose, because a lot of people are working in those big corporations. They are working on projects, but sometimes we feel empty inside. We don't have daily motivation, because we don't believe in what we are doing. So the first source of procrastination is lack of purpose and lack of intrinsic motivation. The second main source of procrastination is lack of willpower. Yes, sometimes we truly want to do something. We know what to do. For example, we have our New Year's resolution, so we know that we want to exercise more. We know that we want to eat healthier, but at the end, we are unable to push ourselves to start. So that's the second source, lack of willpower. And the third is about failure. We often are scared of failure, and we are then unable to start. So overcoming failure is another strategy for fighting procrastination, because there is a beautiful study on the fact that if you are able to forgive yourself, if you are able to do self-forgiveness, you procrastinate less. So sometimes we are stuck in a let's say loop of regret. We fail, then we regret, we undermine our self-esteem, and at the end we postpone and procrastinate even more. So sometimes it's about to restart our motivation again, to forgive ourselves and start again. So those are three main sources of procrastination, and basically those are three main chapters of my book too.
Yeah, those are the three chapters: the purpose, willpower, and failure. Fear of failure. I want to linger here for a minute on fear of failure, because that was the second most in my poll that I took. The thing that people that stops them from achieving their goals and causes procrastination. But let me one of the other things that kind of comes up, I think, for me in terms of my own personal experience with procrastination is that it's just like the stuff I don't do is the stuff that's hard, or the stuff that is going to be unpleasant. Not necessarily hard, because I don't mind challenging myself, but just like, I have to do this. It's like, I got to write this story about a topic. Do you Matt sort of probably comes into lack of purpose, lack of motivation, but this idea of like just trying to not put ourselves in a situation of doing something that's unpleasant.
Well, it's the linked with the willpower part, because procrastination, and this is the key idea behind finding procrastination. And the idea is that procrastination is not a time management issue; it's more emotional management issue. So if you have a complex task, you have very intense negative emotion. You have aversion towards the task. But if you, for example, divide a huge task into smaller ones, then your negative emotion goes down, and then it's easier to master your willpower and to start. So I think that this part, like if the task is complex, or if you don't know where to start, it's all about managing your own emotions, and that's the willpower part. Because in science they call this self-regulation, the ability to overcome our negative emotions. And that's basically what the willpower is for.
All right, so let's get into we've talked about why, the general reason. I'm sure there's going to be some other reasons why we procrastinate that are going to come up in this conversation as I hear you speaking, because I am an expert in procrastination. You're an expert in how to manage procrastination. I'm an expert in actually procrastinating. And so I want to talk, let's go through the three main pillars of your book, the three main chapters of the book. The first thing that you talk about is the importance of what you call intrinsic motivation.
Right.
What do you mean by intrinsic motivation? How is that different than, is it extrinsic? What's the opposite of intrinsic?
Right. Yeah, the extrinsic one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say like 80 to maybe 90% of my clients on one-on-one sessions, I do also one-on-one coaching, and like 80 to 90% of them, they are average people. They are, let's say, average successful. They have like nice jobs. They have nice families. So they don't have any huge problems. But the problem is that sometimes they feel empty inside. So and the main reason, or the main solution, is to come up with what we call a life vision. Because if you come up with your life vision, if you ask yourself, like, what are those things that you truly enjoy doing in your life? What are those tasks that you feel the most fulfilled at work? If you ask yourself what are your strengths and how you can deploy those strengths on a daily basis, basically, those are small steps that can improve your daily life. Because the more intrinsic motivation you have, the more often you are in what is called state of flow. You enjoy the process, time stops for you. And basically, state of flow is just the exact opposite of procrastination. Because if you procrastinate, you have a lot of negative emotions, you have the feeling of regret, and basically you are undermining yourself. But if you are in a state of flow, if you are using your strengths and you are doing something meaningful, you are then full of positive emotions. You have a higher level of dopamine in your brain, you are much more fulfilled, and you feel the sense of purpose in life and at work in general. So basically, the first chapter and the first practical tool is to write a personal vision. Ask yourself, like, what are your strengths? What are the most meaningful activities to you? What are the things that you feel the state of flow in, and slowly with small steps, if you improve your daily life by asking yourself how you can use those activities or strengths on daily basis, then you are able to beat procrastination. So basically, if you have very strong life vision, you don't procrastinate those tasks because you want to do them and you are fulfilled on the path. So I love the saying that path is the destination, because to enjoy the process is the best solution for fighting procrastination. Because if you are in a state of flow and when you enjoy the process, you are just don't postponing because you love what you are doing. So this is the ultimate solution for, let's say, 80% of my clients. So we are not working just on willpower. We are working on a personal vision. And if you have a great personal vision, if you know what you want to do in your life, then you have much higher level of motivation, and it works without improving your willpower.
Let me ask you a question. When you were working on End of Procrastination, the book, were there days when you just didn't feel like writing like a chapter or sitting down? So
yeah, of course. It was twice painful. Yeah? If you are procrastinating, writing a book about procrastination, it's twice painful. But at the end of the day, I had to sit and write, and I had to deploy all my strategies on myself. So I had to ask myself why I'm doing that. What is the reason behind writing a book? It's not money, obviously, because if you spend 2 years of writing a book, you cannot say that you do it for money. You have to have a higher purpose. So in my case, it was truly to help as many people as possible to fight their procrastination and to improve their lives. So I always think about the vision, why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that was the first part of fighting my procrastination of writing the book. And second strategy was to just write few paragraphs, not to focus on writing a whole chapter because it's huge, it's overwhelming. But if you focus on writing 2 paragraphs a day, it's fine. It's not that huge, and with those small steps, you can accomplish even those huge projects like writing the whole book.
So for you, even though you personally might not have wanted to sit down and write that, and that's I think a struggle that a lot of writers go through. They don't want to, writing is hard. We all know writing is very difficult.
It is, yeah. And you don't have a feedback. I am more extroverted, alone, right? So I love to work with people. I love to do keynotes, and if I say a joke, the audience is laughing. But if you write, you are alone for many weeks, many months.
Very
you don't have any feedback. Yeah,
I know.
And it's difficult to stay motivated, and it's difficult to stay motivated in the era of what is called the cheap dopamine, like the social media. Like you constantly have dopamine on social media by scrolling, but when you are writing, there is no dopamine. You are waiting 2 years for the first dopamine rush.
You're basically the audience,
and and it's truly difficult. But for me, it was also the most fulfilling project of my life, because now the book has around 24 translations, so it's sold all around the world, and I'm getting feedback from people basically from all continents, and they are sending me messages that it's truly helped them. So for me now, I have a lot of dopamine after those 2 years of writing. I have a lot of dopamine from the feedback that it was meaningful. So I'm not happy that the book is just a bestseller. I'm happy that it truly helps.
So when you were actually writing the book and having these struggles with procrastination, were you telling yourself, especially, hey, this might be hard now, but I'm doing this because I'm going to help others. And this is going to be, the purpose of this book is greater than just me and my struggles right now with procrastination. I'm going to be helping others with what I'm struggling with right now. Was that sort of your self-talk that was motivating you? That was the intrinsic motivation for you? Right.
Completely like that. Okay. Because for me, in the time, I already had a successful company since I'm an entrepreneur. So it was not about money. I was writing the book in the time that I was not about chasing money. I was about chasing the purpose. So it was maybe even more difficult because to motivate yourself just with the purpose, 2 years, it's truly difficult. But at the end, it worked. And I had a lot of feedback from my clients from coaching, and I was always constantly reading the feedback that it truly helped them. And I told myself, well, if you help those people, you can help even more. And my goal was truly to help millions with the book.
And I like how you said you broke it down. You didn't overwhelm yourself. Like you broke it down into, you gave yourself are goals important? Because I know that goals are kind of controversial. Some people say goals are not as important as people, because that's
I
like
have
sort
the
of
whole chapter about goals.
I know. We should talk about
yeah.
goals. So talk to me a little bit about goals. Like, what are the pros and cons of having goals? Because I think a lot of people think, well, it's all about just set a goal and hit your goal, and and that's going to be satisfying. But that doesn't work always.
Well, according to the science, well, if you are setting goals, you then focus on that goal, and it's telling you basically that the process is not that important. So it's telling you the reward will be somewhere in the future. So it means that in the present moment you are unhappy. So I'm telling people to focus on activities rather than goals. So if you ask yourself, like, what are those key activities that can help you to do what you want, and how you can use your strengths during those activities, and how you can put even more meaning in those activities, then you enjoy the process. I told you about the state of flow, so you are more often in a state of flow, and at the end you accomplish even more goals, but as a outcome of the fact that you love the process. So I don't tell people to focus on goals. I mean that I had many clients that they put their goals on a like, let's say, kind of board, and they put their wished car, they wished house, but then they realized that they have nothing from that, and they felt let's say demotivated, sometimes depressed. So if you enjoy the process on a daily basis, you are much more happier in the present moment. And I feel that this is the source of not just life satisfaction, but also this is the source of productivity. If you enjoy the process and if you do what you love to do. So this is the ultimate solution. Don't focus on goals, focus on the path.
So what do you mean the path? Like, so the path, can you explain a little bit more what you mean by the path?
Yeah, for example, in my case, I know that there are some activities that are crucial. For example, I also do a podcast, so I love to chat with people, and I love to record a new episode of the podcast. And I know that if I have guests with similar values, if I know that I do my preparation well, if I know that everything is perfect in terms of technical issues, well, then I truly love my work. I truly looking forward to each episode. And at the end, I'm completely lost in a present moment. I forget about cameras around, and I'm only focused on the guest. And for me, this is the core source activity for my, let's say, project of the podcast. And this is what I mean by that. So if I enjoy the process, then probably my listeners also enjoy the process, and they would see my positive emotions. And as emotions are socially contagious, then the podcast and the episode will be much more successful. So I'm not focusing on the numbers around my podcast. So I'm not counting how many views has the episode, but what I'm focusing on is to enjoy the process the most. And I have all those details around that makes me more in the present moment. I love my green tea that I'm drinking with my guests. I'm basically recording my podcast in my living room. And for example, I had a president of my country here in my living room drinking the tea with me and recording the podcast. And it was like, wow, president came to my apartment to record my podcast.
That's amazing.
And it was one of the best days of my life, actually. So this is what I mean by enjoying the process. So if you love what you are doing, you are not procrastinating that. You are also not procrastinating recording the podcast, right? Or sometimes.
Yeah.
But this is what I mean.
I mean, this is, well, I love my podcast. It is one of the things that I find myself not procrastinating about, right, because I love doing it so much. I can't say the same for writing, although, my main source of income is writing. That I find more difficult to motivate. But I think using some of your tricks or tips here will be very helpful.
Well, with writing, I have even more tricks because, for example, I had to find a special place for writing, and I have my favorite tea house or tea room when you can get a beautiful tea, but they don't have Wi-Fi there. and
Oh,
it's
no way. That's perfect. That's
so
perfect.
it's perfect, and you don't have connection there. You don't have cell phone connection there. So basically, you are just there with your laptop, completely without internet connection, and then it's easier to write. So I love to find a place that helps you to be focused. Some people, they love to work in a train, or for example in a meeting room. So the
Yeah.
place is very important, the surroundings. For example, I cannot write at home because it's too clean here without
Yeah.
any noises. I love to write at
In
cafes or
busy.
tea rooms because
Yeah.
it's a little bit busy. You have the little noise around, but those people are not your colleagues to disturb you. So
Disturb you.
it's easier to write there. So my recommendation is to find a good place for writing, and it's not necessary the living room or your apartment. And then I highly recommend you to use the most beautiful and the most useful app is called Om Writer, like
OM.
OMMM, many
Uh-huh.
M's, like
Yeah.
Om Writer. And it has no icons, it has no colors, it's just a minimalist like editor, like typewriter. And for me, this is the app that can get me in a state of flow much quicker than other apps. So I'm using OnWriter, I'm using my tea house with the tea and without internet connection, and then I'm able to write, let's say, many hours in a row, and basically like 80% of the book was written there.
I love that. I love both those tips. Now I want to go to Prague and write in your tea house. Um, uh, we
Actually,
have some.
I mentioned the tea house at the end of the book. That
Okay,
it was
good.
truly the source of my creativity.
I hope it hasn't gotten so crowded that now it's hard to work there. No, that it is true. And I think the pandemic was so hard because it forced us all to work sort of here alone in our, and I say here, I'm in my my house right now, my office. And, it was like, I haven't totally, even though I'm out in the world, I haven't totally broken out of the pandemic, lifestyle of just sort of being in my office, working remotely. And I think it's so important to get out. You're right. And do it and try to break. I have one guy when it was on the podcast once, he never writes from the same location ever. Like he always moves around, even if it's around his house. He moves, go to the kitchen, he'll go to the bedroom, he's probably run out of places to write in his own home, but like to just break it up. Right. And to get up. But I love this idea of getting away from distractions. And also,
we
you're
live
right.
we live in an era of distractions. Like we have notifications every minute, every like on let's say all those social media are trying to catch our attention, and that's the problem because attention means money for those apps and for those big companies. So basically, everyone is trying to what is called to hijack our dopamine system. Like dopamine system hijack is the term for that, and that's the problem because if you are hooked on those apps or those likes and those little sparks of dopamine, it's much more difficult to stay focused on writing because you don't have those spikes of dopamine there. So my another advice is to get rid of all notifications. I have no notifications, like it's clear, nothing there. There's a picture from
I had
New
to turn
York.
it off before we got on. Yeah, because if I have my phone on or for anything is flashing, even now during this interview, things could flash up. A Slack. I mean, I have a full-time job, in addition to doing this. So there's, people wanting to talk to me all day. And that is one tricky thing, especially for writers who kind of do it on the side. And, you maybe have a full-time job doing something else and you're also writing. It is to find that time when you can just step away from your devices. And is that what you do? When you were writing your book, did you, like you said, you had,
I booked the whole day for writing, and then I switch off all my connection, and I told my parents, all my friends, or my in that time I told my girlfriend that I will be off like the whole day. And of course, I procrastinate, let's say 2-3 hours before I started to write. But then I was too bored with procrastination, and I started to write. So I highly recommend people to have long chunks of time without distractions and without internet connection. And then the brain starts to be bored a little bit, and the writing is much more joyful or much more positive activity than to stare around. So then it's easier to write, basically. And you can deploy those activities on all creative things, like even though if you are a graphic designer or whatever, if you have a long chunks of time without distractions, your creativity goes up much more. So it's a ultimate solution for higher creativity too.
Let's talk about willpower. So first of all, maybe you can define willpower for us by how you see what is willpower by your definition. Because I think people don't.
Well, this is a little bit tricky, because basically, if you have the whole system right, if you have your life vision, if you are able to divide big tasks into smaller ones, if you have a life without distractions, then you don't need willpower that much, right? Because everything works. So willpower, it's the moment when you have to overcome some obstacles. And sometimes if you procrastinate, it's like, let's say, red light that is blinking and telling you, don't do that. And for example, for me, if I'm procrastinating something, I don't want to use my willpower to push myself to do that, because sometimes those are activities that I don't want to do, that are not based on my values, for example, or that they are not based on my life vision. So if you need willpower, you should use it very wisely. Yeah, because if you have strong willpower, I have a lot of clients with strong willpower and they can do whatever, but at the end there is burnout because they are able to push themselves even to like meaningless activities or completely stupid activities. So willpower is very tricky. Like if you, for example, do a lot of exercise, I had a client who went to Olympics. So he had a very strong willpower, and he used this willpower, the strong willpower, in his business. And the problem was not the lack of willpower. The problem was that it had no purpose. It was completely nonsense.
But use your willpower to make you miserable. Yeah.
Right. So I truly think that willpower should be only used when you tell yourself, do I really want to do this? Is it based on my values? And if yes, for example, if I want to exercise and I have a gym on Monday and I truly want to go there and my alarm clock is ringing, that's the moment to use your willpower because you truly want to do that. But when you are asked, for example, my email is full of like useless projects, for example, not useless, but for me useless. And if I push myself to like accomplish all my emails, all those projects that are like endless, and the amount of those is endless, then I would be completely lost. I would be in a high risk of burnout. So with willpower, it has to be truly like the right moment to use it. But most of the time, don't use your willpower. Enjoy the process, love what you are doing, and basically you don't need willpower in that time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us beat ourselves up about, I'm being undisciplined. I'm being weak here. Like we get mad at ourselves because we know we're procrastinating and we're doing it anyway. It's like we sabotage ourselves all the time.
It's also a coping mechanism. Like if you procrastinate, maybe you truly don't have to do that, or it's just a feedback that something is wrong. So
it's actually use it as you talk about forgiveness. Like I think people are pretty hard on themselves. I know, guilty as charged. About not getting things done that they should have gotten done, constantly worrying, I should be doing this, why am I not doing this, I should be working on my book, not like looking at this article about Donald Trump. Talk about a distraction. He's like the ultimate distraction. And so it's like, talk to me a little about the role of forgiveness. Like just being a little bit less hard on yourself is important, right?
Well, I'm trying to have my habits around all my life. Every week is full of habits. Like as I said, on Monday I have a personal trainer. I go to the gym. Then we have a company meeting, and I'm trying to have like routines around all my work, because routines work, because you don't need then to push yourself. You don't need to organize things, and because it's a default. Like every Monday I have a gym and I'm not thinking about that. And if it's a default, I'm not procrastinate because it's just there, and I'm used to do that. And all those activities around, like where to go, which gym, with whom, are settled. So I highly recommend people to have routines. But the moment that I regret is that, for example, I do something that ruins my routines. For example, a friend has a birthday and there is a party, and the next day I cancel the gym, for example. In that time, I don't regret it, because for me, the time with a friend was even more meaningful in the time than going to the gym. But if I cancel the gym once, I have a rule that I have to do it the next time, like 100%. So if you fail once, it's okay, but don't make a habit of failure. If you fail again and again, it's easier to completely ruin the habit. So fail once is okay, forgive yourself, and try the next time to be like 100% responsible with the habit.
Yeah. All right. So I like this idea of setting up a routine, but not beating yourself up if you get out of the routine. I mean, because it is hard, I think, especially in today's world, where we have so many different gig. It's sort of the gig world, right? Where it's hard sometimes to have routines in a world where you don't know exactly what every day is going to be like. I mean, back in the old days when I had a full-time job, I could probably have a routine because I pretty much knew my schedule. Now I'm in a situation where I've got a lot of different responsibilities all day, and it's different every day. Like I have you this morning, but then, there's going to be other, who knows, somebody, colleague from another job might call and say, hey, I need you to do this last minute thing, so it's hard for me to get into a routine. What do you do?
You should try. Yeah, you should try, because if you are that lost in a chaos that everyone is calling you and you react, then it's truly difficult to stay focused, because you are distracted all the time. So still, routines, even in your situation, are truly the most important part of fighting procrastination, I guess.
Because a routine, you're right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about overcoming failure. This is the other big chapter in your book. And we talked a little bit earlier on I want to talk about the fear of failure, because I think this is something that haunts a lot of people that I know, and basically is the death of many good ideas. How do you look at, we're sort of taught, oh, it's okay to fail. You only learn by failing, but people hate failing, and it can be tremendous. It can be a tremendous waste. It can feel like a tremendous waste of time. It's obviously hard on your ego or whatever. And then it also just feels like, I can't tell you how many projects I've started and they haven't really gone anywhere. Of course I've had some success, thank goodness. But I've also started a lot of things that were failures. And as I get older, I want to, I guess, maybe have less failures, because I don't necessarily have the luxury of time of like my 20s where I could just throw a lot of things at the wall. Like now I got real responsibilities. I got 2 children that I need to put through college. I've got, a mortgage. I have like real responsibilities. So failure, there's a cost to failure for me. So when people say, oh, try until you succeed, I'm a little bit like, I don't know. So how do you look at failure? So that's what I fear. It's not so much at this point, the ego deflation of like I failed, which of course is unpleasant, but that's not really what stands in my way. Is like the waste of time, the all this effort you put into something that doesn't go as you want it to go.
Right. Yeah. First of all, as you said, like fear of failure is rational. Yeah, because no one wants to fail, and if you fail, you are called loser, and it's obviously negative. So no one wants to be a loser, or no one wants to do many failures in life. What I mean by like overcoming the fear of failure is to, let's say at the beginning, for example, divide your life into what I call exploration part and exploitation part. So for example, if you have your like daily job, well, you don't want to like change everything from one day to another, but you can have a, like, let's say a small project, for example, your podcast, and you can do like those exploration things. And in those exploration things, if you fail, it's not a problem at all. So I highly recommend to people to have like exploration and exploitation part of every project and every part of their life. For example, I had a marketing meeting with my all marketing team today, and we are organizing a big conference next week. And I told them, like, we have like best practices, we have like our system that works for the conference, but around it, I want to improvise. I want to try new things. And if we fail with those new innovations, it's not a problem. So I told them, let's try for example, TikTok campaign. And if it fails, it's okay, because this is the exploration part. But in the core, in the exploitation part, I want to do everything perfectly. Like, we have a system for the conference. We have ads that we know that worked last time. So I always trying to divide everything into those two parts: exploration, exploitation. And if you understand that this is the exploration part, you are much free to fail, because you know this is exploration. You are trying something new. You are trying to innovate. But with the second part, if you are working on something, you don't want to fail with the core of what you're doing. So this works for me in every project that I'm working on, like, to have those two parts, and it's completely okay for me to fail with those exploration.
So fail small,
tasks.
So you're saying kind of make small attempts at things
Right.
that might fail. So don't say, like, I'm going to quit my job today and I'm going to become a writer. And if I fail at that, well, then actually I've completely screwed up my life, because I've just now given up my only source of income to follow a dream that may not happen.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the best way to overcome procrastination, to just make some major life change. I mean, maybe in some cases it is, but it sounds to me like do baby steps.
Yep.
Baby steps,
and
not.
I have a drawing for that, and the drawing is very simple. You have two circles. One circle is in the middle, and it's called core, or a diamond that you are trying to improve. So I'm a perfectionist. I'm trying to focus on that to make it perfect. But around that, you have that like improvisation part. You can try crazy ideas. And that's the second circle. And this is the exploration circle. And I think that the balance between those two is truly important. So in my case, I told the ratio 80 to 90. 80%, I want to do like all those projects, for example, the podcast. I want to do it perfectly. I want to like improve the diamond with the small steps. But in 20%, I want to do crazy things, because the crazy things and thinking outside of the box is the source of innovation, and sometimes a source of my positive emotions when it is successful. So I'm trying to be like 80% exploitation and 20% exploration.
Is procrastination ever just being lazy?
No, there is a huge difference between being lazy, because by definition, procrastination always is connected with negative emotions. And if you are lazy, you don't have negative emotions. You are happy with doing nothing. So sometimes being lazy is completely okay. To have few hours and doing nothing is great. But you have to not to regret that, because if you regret that, you have negative emotions and you are undermining your self-esteem, and you are increasing the chance that you will fail even in the future more often. So for me, being lazy is completely okay. Sometimes I love to be lazy. I love to like sleep longer. I love to do nothing. I love to sit outside on a bench in the middle of a park and just daydreaming. But what is very important is not to have negative emotions around it, because negative emotions are the problem. So procrastination is always connected with negative emotions by definition. So if you are not regret, if you don't have negative emotions, it's not procrastination. It's just a pure laziness, and it's fine.
The negative emotions is the procrastination,
right?
That's yeah. Before you go, I can't let you get away without telling me the story of why the president of Czechoslovakia came to your house. How did that happen? Can you tell me a little, or came to your apartment? Can you tell me about how that happened?
Yeah, but like my podcast is like one of top podcasts in the country, and there was a new election, so I invited him, and he agreed. And we also had him as a speaker to our conferences. So I met him many times before, and we were together working on a project of a let's say new country, let's say mission or vision, like because our country lack a long-term vision, because every political party is having completely different vision. So at the end, we are stuck. It's the same in the US, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working
Everywhere.
on that new country vision with the president. And then he came here and we recorded a podcast, and it was amazing. Like it was one of the top episodes, because he's very smart, he's very wise, and he has a strong personality. He's truly a big leader. Even for people that didn't vote it for him, still he has a higher moral credit. And so we are now happy that we have this kind of president here, because he's a great guy.
What was it like when he came? Was there a lot of security? Was it like very, very intense?
For me, it was an interview that I was preparing the most, truly, because
I'm sure.
I was not scared, but I was very respectful. And he's ex NATO general. So I was discussing with him the war in Ukraine. We are discussing like very, very deep and strong topics of today's world. So for me, it was also very meaningful, like to share his views on those like hot topics, and help basically to spread his world, because I truly think that he has a lot of experience in that, and we should like listen to him.
His name is Peter, same
Pavel.
first name as you, Peter
yes.
Pavel.
Yeah.
If you ever look this guy up on the internet, he looks like central casting as like the most like handsome, like debonair president. Like this guy is like, he's really, I remember seeing him on a Instagram and being like, who is this?
Yeah.
Is he turning out to be a pretty good president?
He is. And someone was joking that he's like Tom Cruise's dad, but they are at their same ages.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Okay. Last bit of information here. What would be your biggest advice to writers? Because you've written, how many books have you written at this point?
Just one? Just one. Okay. This little one.
This book. But it's a big book.
Of course.
Yeah. So what is your advice? As somebody who's gone through the process of writing, what is your advice that you would give to writers? Like,
well, for me, the best advice would be like, take one piece of paper, one sheet of paper, and note down why you want to write a book. And when you are lacking the motivation, just read that paper and like refresh the reason why you started, refresh the purpose around writing, refresh like why you do what you do. And it helped me a lot, like to have like the vision to write, why, and to understand my intrinsic motivation. And it helped me to overcome those moments of being empty, and those moments of procrastinating, writing a book about procrastination.
It's good advice. Everything is so good. You're really good at this, explaining this in a very clear way. I really appreciate Petr Ludwig. If people want to find out more information about you, your book, where should they go?
Well, they can Google my name and connect me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to connect, or to connect me on other social media like Instagram or Facebook. Or feel free to connect me, and feel free to give me a feedback of our interview. I would be very happy that your listeners write me feedback, and I'm still trying to reply to all my readers.
Wow. And you're still
by myself.
Yeah, by yourself. And you seem to be a big star in your home country. I'm assuming your podcast is not in English, or is it in English?
I have two channels. One is in Czech, another one is in English. So I have like 10 episodes of my English podcast, and both are called Deep Talks. Deep Talks. The format is 1 hour long, and I'm trying to discuss purpose of life and at work. So basically, all those ideas that we discussed are the topics of my podcast too.
God. All right, Petr Ludwig, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, too. It was
very
a great
revelatory.
pleasure.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was great.